It is 1121 AD, and on the wide Caucasian plains of Didgori, the Georgian army of King David the Builder stands triumphant over the forces of the Seljuk Turks. It is just a little over 20 years since the Seljuks suffered their monumental reversal at the hands of the Latin pilgrims of the First Crusade, and since that time, the states of Edessa, Antioch, Tripoli, and Jerusalem have stood in the spiritual center of the Levant, while in Anatolia, the old Roman Empire moves every year further into the lands of its former imperium. Now, far to the north, David intends to construct a similar domain. With the capital Tiflis now under his suzerainty, he sends out word for those who will bring strength to his rule, and his cry is answered by fully 40,000 Cuman fighters and their kin, as well as thousands of Ossetian Alans and near uncountable mercenaries from as far afield as the Frankish domains on the Atlantic shore. With such power and acumen, David is an irresistible conqueror, and by the time he lies on his deathbed in 1125, all of northern Armenia, as well as Shirvan, has been annexed to his realm. David leaves a far stronger kingdom than that which he found at the outset of his reign. This Georgian Golden Age continues in the reign of David's son Demetrius, whose wisdom manifests in his policies of consolidation and fortification. Many great kingdoms have fallen as quickly as they rose, due to their leaders imagining themselves great conquerors, and as the 12th century progresses and the Crusader states contract for this very reason, Georgia remains strong. So it is that when Demetrius dies in 1156, he also leaves a stronger realm to his own heir, George. George too enjoys a long reign, but royal expansion resumes during his tenure, and both Ani and Vin are conquered, and the Seljuk governor of southern Armenia driven from his post. A potential crisis caused by George's lack of a male heir is averted when he appoints his 18-year-old daughter Tamar as his co-ruler, and the final half-dozen years of his reign are completed with her at his side. Thus, when George dies in 1184, the transfer of power to his daughter is completed with a seeming minimum of disruption. Beneath the exterior of palace ceremony, however, there are those who wish to challenge the strength and resolve of their monarch, and there are many who believe that Tamar's direct charge of government should be cast aside altogether. Her preference for continuing George's habit of promoting men for merit rather than lineage also upsets the noble houses. The Patriarch of Georgia, McCallion, makes the price of his support the High Chancellorship of the kingdom, giving him unprecedented secular and spiritual power. Tamar, with little other choice, accedes to his demand. The leader of the nobles, Kutlu Aslani, goes one further than the Patriarch and demands that Tamar construct a palace next to the royal headquarters in which a council of nobles will dictate the policy of Georgia and give their approval to royal orders they judge in their interest. Tamar realizes that this is tantamount to ceding her sovereignty and promptly has Aslani arrested and faces down those that protest her decision. Aslani is eventually released, minus his lands and offices, and the lesson is clear. Tamar is the ruler now. For a king, protecting a medieval kingdom meant protecting the very lives of those in his bloodline. Nowadays, our lives depend on the internet. I mean, you wouldn't be able to watch this or some video without an internet connection. The internet provides immense opportunity and value, but as we engage with it, we must protect ourselves against cyber threats like privacy breaches, fraud, phishing, malware, and other dark web activities. This video's sponsor, NordVPN, is like creating a virtual wall around your own online kingdom, which protects you from scammers on the internet, all with just a couple of clicks. Whether you're at home, traveling, or connected to a public Wi-Fi, NordVPN encrypts your online traffic and keeps your browsing private and secure. Not only is NordVPN the fastest VPN and one of the most feature-rich overall, it's also the certified phishing protection tool. Its anti-malware detects nearly all phishing websites and automatically blocks any attempt to steal sensitive information. And NordVPN extends to things you're not even aware of, like your data being leaked or hacked. In the background, NordVPN's dark web monitor constantly scans websites, catches if your data is being used or sold, and notifies you immediately. With NordVPN, your data and online activity are protected, allowing you to stay connected. Go to nordvpn.com/historymarsh or click the link in the description to get your 2-year plan plus 4 extra months. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's a no-brainer to try. In the following years, she bows to what is then seen as the inevitable, even for a monarch, and takes a husband. Likely in an effort to avoid showing any preference for one faction over another within her own kingdom, Tamar chooses Yuri Bogolyuski, a Russian in exile from his homeland and living with the Kipchak Caucasian tribes. The marriage initially seems successful, and Yuri leads raids against the Seljuks of Rum and the Atabegs of Iran, in what is today Azerbaijan. But relations between husband and wife begin to deteriorate when Yuri's propensity for drunkenness becomes too hard to ignore, not to mention his scandalous interest in sodomy. For his part, Yuri accuses Tamar of being unable to bear children. Tamar eventually takes an expedient means of divorce and sends Yuri to Constantinople with a very generous number of presents as bribes. With the support of the Council of State, Tamar marries again, this time to the Ossetian David Soslan, who proves to not only be a worthy warrior, but also more virtuous in his leisurely tastes. This ability is soon needed, for Yuri returns with the support of disaffected nobles and prepares to lead an army in conquering the kingdom he claims is his by right. His host is defeated in a pitched battle by the Georgian High Constable Gemrekel Torelli in the Kartli region in 1191. Yuri makes subsequent forays into the realm, but each one is swatted away as easily as the last. A sign that there is still work to be done on the kingdom's southern borders comes in the aftermath of the battle in Kartli, when a Georgian noble named Guzan hands his border strongholds over to Islamic forces in southern Armenia, necessitating an operation in force by David Soslan to retake them. Within 2 years, the Georgian royals are ready to take revenge, and Soslan moves into the lands of Iran again on another razzia. He loots, burns, and pillages from there to Theodosiopolis, and seemingly nothing can be done to bring him to a halt. Worse is to come for the Seljuks, when Soslan obliterates a sizable host of theirs at the Araxes River. From this point, it is open season for the Georgians to raid and plunder, debilitating the enemy and committed to the overall strategy of driving south to annex a portion of the Silk Road and the rich taxes that will come with its administration. In this, they are mirroring the raids of the Crusaders into Egypt, as well as the Christian kingdoms of Iberia against the Emirates of Al-Andalus. All across the Eurasian Peninsula, it seems the northern kingdoms are on the march. But the Abbasid Caliph An-Nazir remains a stalwart power, and when he hears of the incursions from the Georgian kingdoms, he declares jihad and finances an army for the north, that is said to number no fewer than 60,000 men, led by his Atabeg of Azerbaijan, Abu Bakr. Their first target is the Shirvan Shah, the ruling house of Iran that has been forced to declare itself subservient to the Georgian throne in return for peace, and whose leader, XI-XII, has sheltered Abu Bakr's brother, Amir Miran. The two have been involved in a power struggle that has already resulted in the death of a third brother at Abu Bakr's hand. Carrying the standard of the Caliph before him, Abu Bakr bulldozes through the Shirvan region and prepares to make an invasion of the Georgian domains themselves. Meanwhile, the Queen and her consorts have not been idle, and they have raised the largest force they can to withstand the onslaught of the powerful Abbasid-sponsored force. Fully 30,000 men are said to march forth with David Soslan at their head, a mix of heavy armoured cavalry, horse archers, and mountain infantrymen. Georgia is not a poor realm, and its incursions and protection monies gained from the Silk Road region, along with its rich agricultural and livestock output, allows for a professional class and even urban centres. But the wealth and resources of the Abbasid Caliphate dwarf those of Tiflis, even with its own ongoing feud against the Seljuk Turks. The army that sets out from the city in early May under the sound of trumpets is necessarily apprehensive of what it will find when it meets the enemy. The Queen takes her leave of her husband at the cave monastery complex at Vadzia, where she will await news of his success or the failure of his expedition. By the end of the month, Soslan has reached the borders of Shirvan, and his fears are realized. After sending out scouts and reconnaissance patrols to engage and record the enemy's size and strength, they report back that Abu Bakr is leading a gigantic host, and it is currently moving toward the city of Shamkor. His force does not so much resemble an army of reclamation, but an army of revenge. When Soslan reaches Shamkor, he makes another thundering discovery. Abu Bakr has used his time in the citadel to reinforce the fortifications and assemble fresh walls and towers. It protects one wing, while the river Shamkorche protects his rear and opposite side. Though his army remains in camp, the town and its defences are effectively blocking Soslan from attacking them in the open. Any Georgian companies coming within the vicinity are immediately engaged by advance horse archers, who goad Soslan's men to try and initiate a full-scale battle. Meeting with his captains for a discussion on tactics, neither of the options before them appeal to the experienced war leaders. The attack in force which Abu Bakr seems to relish will only result in the Georgians breaking themselves against the dug wall and perimeter defences of a much larger enemy. Similarly, a siege against a clearly well-supplied and organised opponent will likely wear down the Queen's army before it does the Abbasids. A third option is a withdrawal, but that will likely shatter the morale that is already beginning to falter, and elements of the army would begin to fade away on the march. Close to the final night of the month, Soslan calls his captains in for a final briefing. There will be a frontal attack on the first day of June. Siege engines already constructed are brought forward in sight of the Shamkor walls. Battering rams and ladders are prepared and set out close by. From the walls of the town, the garrison and the tremendous host under its protection prepare for battle. They have the well-dug-in position and the greater numbers. The fight ahead will be hard, but they will triumph in the end. Many men wish to give their lives in the service of the Almighty, and should it be his decision to take them, then so be it. The morning of the attack dawns, and many of the Georgian soldiers, along with their Kipchak allies, must feel a shiver of despondency. Their numbers are far fewer than they had even imagined prior to the full deployment. At the sound of the trumpets, they surge forward, and the attack begins. The siege engines pummel the walls, and arrows fly in their hundreds toward the men on the parapet. The units of Ivan McCallion make their play for the city gate, bringing up the ram and sending archers' units forward to cover its approach from the ground. The ram touches the gate, and then there is only the remorseless grind of the battle. Arrow bolts are returned from the walls, as are the usual defensive measures by a city under attack. But the Georgian Queen's forces are relentless. More reinforcements are rushed from the camp behind, and the wall and gate are shored up. The attack will falter, of that there is little doubt, but it will take a strong effort. Committing himself to the task, Abu Bakr watches for further moves or reinforcements from the army in front of him. It is at that moment that the trumpets from the rear ring out, and then there is pandemonium. Heavy Georgian cavalry rush into the midst of the camp from its undefended eastern side, and destruction is sown everywhere. Soslan, after studying the layout of the region, seems to have made the discovery that the eastern environs of the camp and town provided him with an approach from which he could launch an attack, but only with the utmost care. Thus, the night before the frontal assault was launched, but after the siege engines had been brought prominently into view, Soslan and almost a third of his army had set off on a wide, arcing ride, their armor covered and their horses' hooves muffled. Everything had to be kept silent and invisible. Word of their discovery reaching the Abbasid camp early would spell disaster. Marching through the darkness, they managed to complete the ride without the Azari patrols alerting the leadership to their presence, and then they wait until the smoke and noise from the diversionary battle rises into the air. With Abu Bakr's focus completely on the frontal assault, the cavalry in full armor sweeps in from the far side, fording the river, and the result is an implosion of epic proportions. The impact of the cavalry charge crumples the lightly protected sides of the camp. There is still hard fighting at the gate of the city. An attempt is made to hold the line amidst the tents and laneways of the camp also, but quickly, all too quickly, the result seems to be an inevitability. Abu Bakr manages to escape, along with a portion of his force, but the greater number are killed or taken prisoner. David Soslan has completed a momentous deception with astounding discipline and method. By the hour the sun has reached its zenith in the sky, the battle is at a close, and Georgia's army celebrates its victory and its king consort. In the aftermath of the fight at Shamkor, the majority of the former forces of Abu Bakr flee to Ganja, but the Georgia Kipchak army remains in pursuit. Later, more sources will say that the numbers present at Shamkor were just a third of those listed on both sides, perhaps fewer than 10,000 in the Georgian army. But it is inarguable that there is a veritable king's ransom of treasure and hostages left behind in the fields and buildings of Shamkor, and they are apportioned while the majority of the host gets on with the task of completing the campaign. By the close of the season, Ganja too has fallen, and Queen Tamar's realm is confirmed as the foremost regional power of the Caucasus. The standard of the Caliph is brought to the heartland as a trophy of victory. But this success brings attention, and the sultans of Rum and the Abbasid Caliphate still command forces of considerable power. David Soslan has proven the ability of Georgia to enter elite status among the nations. It remains to be seen if it can maintain the position. I appreciate you being here for the video. Please give that subscribe button a gentle medieval slap and tickle the like button to appease the almighty algorithm. It will help out the channel greatly. Cheers!